Hello everyone, welcome back to Behind Bars Blueprint. My name is Jason, and I'm the founder and CEO of this program where we try to help individuals and their families navigate the incarceration process from beginning to end and even beyond. Today we got a little bit of a different topic for you, something that you might not think about, and you should. Basically, it's when do you stop believing or when not to believe your incarcerated loved one. I know that sounds a little dicey. I know it sounds like it might be a little cruel, but it's very important, so let's jump into it. So what exactly do I mean by you can't always trust your incarcerated loved one? Again, that sounds pretty mean, and I get it. But when you have a phone call, when you get a letter, I know a lot of times just them not being there, that's all a punch in the gut, and I get that. You want to believe everything they tell you, but I have seen it firsthand multiple times, and I'm not sure sometimes what happens here. I've got my ideas, and we work with people on this, but it affects the person back home to a much greater extent than I think even the incarcerated loved one understands or knows. And sometimes you should believe what they tell you, and sometimes you shouldn't. But here's the hard truth. Not everything you hear is going to be true. And some things are going to be real. I'm telling you, some things are going to be exaggerated. It's, they understand that you are their biggest ally. They understand that you are their biggest proponent. And a lot of times, because we don't want to look bad, because we don't want to look as guilty as we are, it's easy to start playing that victim role. It's easy to start saying, hey, they're abusing me. They're being mean to me. This isn't right. I tried to do the right thing, and I don't know why everybody's out to get me. And that's something that I think you need to hear. And a lot of people, especially a lot of loved ones back home, you want to think the best of your loved one. You want to protect them. You hate the whole situation. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of times when what you're being told just isn't the truth. Now, before you start going and saying, hey, that's not true, my loved one would never do that to me. They would never tell me a lie. They would never try to manipulate me or eschew a story or sugarcoat anything. Just understand, prison is its own world, okay? And in that world, manipulation a lot of times can mean survival. People exaggerate in prison quite a bit. They bend the truth. They flat out lie. You meet people that were super successful and massive entrepreneurs and wealthy people before they, got unfairly locked up. And I've heard it all. I really have. And I'm not saying that mistreatment doesn't happen, but because it does. But the reality of the situation is not every single time they call you, not every single letter that you get, there's something going on. I think we all at least know of somebody, maybe not your incarcerated loved one at this point, but we all know somebody who just every single time you talk to them, something's always going on. There's always some miniature crisis in their life. Well, why is that? Well, a lot of times it's because that's people's excuse not to perform. That's people saying, well, hey, I'd really love to do the right thing. I'd love to get ahead in life. I'd love to start, but just things that are outside of my control. It's not my fault. I can't seem to catch a break, et cetera, right? So you got to be careful because too much fiction, too much allowed fiction can result in a loss of trust, and it can severely damage the relationship. So you need to understand that if your loved one is potentially doing this, or if you think they're doing this, the reason is because in prison, manipulation a lot of times is survival. So what are some examples of what I'm trying to talk about here? Well, I've actually written some down that I've encountered over the years, and if you've heard some of these, again, it's not a guarantee that your loved one is being dishonest, but it is something to start keeping your radar on for, to make sure I'm getting the whole scoop. Because why? The truth of the matter in all this is we need for them to be dealing honestly with you. You need to be dealing honestly with them, and they need to be dealing honestly with themselves. And if that's not happening, then true growth and true change isn't going to occur. It's not possible. Okay, if we're always pretending and playing make-believe and not dealing with the problems at hand, that starts to be a bigger problem in and of itself. So what are some things that I've heard? I'm starving. They don't feed us in here. Well, that's not true. The food is bad. There's no question about it. I think even state officials will tell you it's prison. Food's bad. Okay, it's not supposed to be good. But they're not starving. A lot of times, what the angle is on that is, hey, I want commissary money, right? Can you give me more money to put on commissary so I can buy some food that tastes more like the outside world? Which nothing wrong with that, but the angle and the approach is what the problem is on that. The other one I've heard is the guards. The guards are targeting me. The guards are after me. I'm just minding my own business. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, and the guards are targeting me. Sometimes that happens, okay? But sometimes it's a natural consequence of behavior that you're not being told about too. And again, understand, prison it has its own rules. And somebody that's, especially the longer someone's been in, the more that you adapt. You have to. And but you don't always adapt in healthy ways. And again, manipulation in prison is often used as a survival tactic. So that's another one I heard. The guards are targeting me. If you really love me, you'd send money, or you'd call more often, or you'd send more letters. Well, that's not true at all. Again, that's a unilateral decision. And what I mean by unilateral is your loved one is automatically making that decision for you. They're telling you what you think and what you've, and they don't have a right to do that. Just because you don't call as often as they would like. And you have to remember, they have a tremendous amount of time on their hands compared to you, and they don't understand that. And over time, they forget that, they lose sight of that. So again, the answer to all this is be very patient, be understanding, but you can't just automatically play into it and assume everything that you're being told is true. So how do you approach this? How do you approach a loved one or speak with a loved one that you think may be trying to manipulate, maybe stretching the truth a little bit? Well, the first thing you do is, don't dismiss everything. Don't dismiss everything outright, because you're going to lose trust. If you dismiss everything they say, very quickly, you're not going to get anything. And that's how walls start going up. And that's not what we want. Okay. We're trying to get to the point where, your loved one is being honest with you and communicating with you at the same time without trying to have an angle or manipulate. But having said that, the second part of this is don't believe everything they say either. Okay. You have a right to exercise your mental capacity. You have a right to sit there and use your head and say, okay, does this make sense? Is this lining up? Does there always seem to be a problem? Those are little cues that you can start zoning in on and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to dismiss everything, but I don't have to accept everything at face value either. I'm able to look at this from a broader view. So what's the answer? Well, balance is the key. And that's true for most things in life. It's, you have to respond calmly, but you don't want to get pulled into any kind of drama. It's, you can say things like, hey, look, I hear you. I'll look into it. I'll see what I can find out about that. Hey, they're not giving me my visits and I don't know why. Well, typically, when someone loses their visits, there's a very clear reason why they've lost their visits. It's a form of punishment. So are you getting the straight answer from your loved one? Who knows? But that's what okay, well, I'll look into it. Hey, look, just so you know, I can't send money right now. I always support you, but I'm just not in a position to send you money right now. I love you. I care about you. But right now, you have to understand where my predicament is as well. As I'll do everything I can to support you, but right now I can't send you any money. And then the other thing that you can actually do with this is you want to be able to turn this around and not in a mean way, but then you want to finish up with something like, hey, just out of curiosity, is there a way that maybe you can handle some of this yourself? Like, would you like to talk about some ways that, tell me some of the ways that you can handle this yourself? Is there somebody you can go to? Is there a petition process? Is there an appeal process? What resources do you have available for you firsthand right there that you can start taking action right now while I look into this on the outside? And again, you're showing compassion, but you're not just taking the bait every time it's thrown into the water. And that's important. Again, balance is the key. Listen to what they're saying. Don't always take everything at face value, especially if there's always a problem. And then try to help them share in some of the responsibility of, boy, how can we get this resolved together? So in closing, if this hits home for you, you're not alone. There's families all across the country that are dealing with the same thing daily. They're wrestling with the same struggles. What do I believe? What do I ignore? How do I stay strong without just completely walking away from my loved one or making them think that I walk away? And by the way, that's another tactic is, if you don't respond the way they think you should respond, the guilt trips start, and don't play into that too. Just say, no, you have to keep bringing everything back to reality. No, that's not true. I do love you. I do support you. It's not what you're making it out to be. It's just, we have to go about this in a different way. And that's exactly why I built Behind Bars Blueprint. It's a step-by-step program for individuals and their families. It's from day one. It's from inside all the way through to out and then beyond that. And it's a guide that helps families and incarcerated individuals who may not know what to do, maybe not know the best approach. And again, you're learning from years of other people's experiences, other people's mistakes. And that's what the program is all about. So, if that seems something that might be helpful to you guys, I would encourage you to click the link, go to behindbarsblueprint.com. You can also get on Amazon. And go to the author page at amazon.com/author/Behind Bars Blueprint. We have all of our books there. And again, you can read the descriptions and say, hey, which one do I think works best for me? Which one do I think works best for my loved one? And you can actually be working on, we have a book for our loved ones that are at home, and we have several books for those that are incarcerated. And you can actually work on those books together and then make it a weekly project. Hey, this week on the phone call, we're going to spend 10 minutes and we're going to talk about, hey, what did you learn? And what did I learn? So I hope that helps, guys. I hope that this is something that makes sense. Again, it's not designed to be cruel. It's designed that sometimes we have to have tough conversations. And if we truly love and care about the person that's incarcerated, we have to help them, and that's our job. We have to be a support system for them. And sometimes that means having tough conversations, and sometimes that means not always believing everything they say. So again, hope this helps, guys. If you would, please leave a like, subscribe, share the video if you think it's going to be helpful. And until next time, keep the faith, stay strong.